Good evening, everyone. My name is Riley Dublinsky, and it is my pleasure to welcome you back to our Inclusive Leadership Conference. I would like to thank you for joining us for this afternoon's session in Nonverbal Bias, a dance therapist's guide to raising awareness. So, who's excited to get started?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited for this because anytime I can get to use my modality of dance movement therapy and combine it with social justice, it's always just a great day. So
yes, it is. You're right. Awesome.
Super excited.
We are more than excited to welcome our breakout session speaker, Alyssa Bigbee. Alyssa Bigbee is an activist and youth development consultant in the city of Philadelphia. She is also the founder of Rebel Arts Movement Center based in the Old Kensington area where she serves low-income youth. She is a graduate of Kutztown University with a BS in Communications and pursuing a master's degree at Drexel University for Dance Movement Therapy and Counseling. Alyssa has used her passion for the arts to empower communities through workshops, classes, and mentorships. After an extensive career as a professional dancer, she worked with various OST programs to bring quality arts programming to low-income communities. She developed a performing arts program at the University of Pennsylvania Netter Center, where over 50 students in West Philadelphia participated in Black History plays and performances. There she also founded the Cross-Grade Performing Arts Center summer internships, where high school students fostered leaderships and mentorships for elementary students in summer camps. As a student dance therapist, can I see some excitement in the chat? Okay, cool. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Alyssa Bigbee.
Hi, yes, with the whoop. I always do this when I do the whoop. With the whoop. So first, yes, welcome everybody. My name is Alyssa, and I just want to start off. So this is Nonverbal Bias, and this is a dance movement therapist guide. I am a dance movement therapist, so I just wanted to offer up some info based off of research I was doing on nonverbal bias in a healthcare setting. So I wanted to create this because I thought like this was something, a topic that we don't really discuss a lot. And it's often so hidden because we don't know how to report these things or how to be aware. So I wanted to offer that up. So I want to share slides. And, because I'm a movement therapist, I like to get a little experiential sometimes. So just, bear with me. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Oh, wait. I think I did it. I'm going to do entire screen, I believe. So I'm going to share that. For some reason. Oh, okay. That's why Google wants to record. Can you guys see my screen at all? Let me know in the chats. Google B1 a lot. So let me know. Somebody in the chat can see. No. Okay. Hold on. Oh, sorry. I apologize, guys. It's asking me for steps. I'm just doing that real fast, and so I can let it access my screen. Oh. All right. And security and privacy, and then, oh, screen recording. Okay. Here we go. Click the lock. I may need help, guys, because I'm not sure why it's saying that I need to give permission in order to share my screen. I've never seen that before, so I just may need a little help.
Okay, just give me 1 second.
It literally is the story of my life. And you gotta love technology. Like, this is where we are. And now it's gonna say I have to quit and open. Let's try it now. Let's see if it works, if I can share this. If not, I know I sent slides. I can just go by that, but let's see. Is it working now? Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes, we see
yes.
it. It's there. Yay.
Chat. All right, we here.
Thank you guys for being so patient.
Yes, I and helping me as I struggle through this. But as I said, this is Nonverbal Bias, a dance therapist guide to raising awareness. And so what I first want to do is, because let's get grounded first, all right? So I want to do an exercise called Get Anchored. And the purpose of this is I like to give what I call tools whenever we're going into topics that are a little bit touchy. And the reason for that is sometimes things can come up alive inside of us, like triggers or just discomfort. So I want to do this exercise to help us get anchored so that if any point you feel that feeling coming up for you, you can use this. So what you want to do is we're going to take 5 minutes. You're going to find a place of relative comfort in your space. That could be, the floor, your chair, your bed, if you're near it. You want to find that location. And you just want to allow yourself to get into a position that feels natural. So I'm going to let you do that. Take your time. Find yourself a place of relative comfort, a place, as close to comfort as possible. And just allow your body to get into the position that just feels natural. Relaxing your shoulders. Are you trying to sit up too much? Are you hunched? Just get to a nice position that is feel comfortable. And I'm just going to guide you through this. And as you're in this position of comfort, you're more than welcome to lower your eyes, or you can close them. You can leave them open, whatever is comfortable for you. I want you to bring attention to your breath. Observing how fast it's going. Allowing that breath to reach every part of your body. And as you're doing this, I invite you to just scan your body. Observe any parts of discomfort in your body and bring your attention to that. Is there tension in your shoulders? Is there discomfort in your back? And don't feel like you have to be committed to the position you're in. If your body wants to shift to a different position, allow it to do so. And just feel your weight sinking towards the floor, the bed, the chair, wherever you are. Feel that weight dropping down. Let yourself release. Maybe stretch those body parts that are a little bit tight. Put movement into those body parts. Maybe a little swing, just putting movement in those parts that are feeling a little bit heavy. And take about another minute. When you're ready, at your own pace, I invite you to come back to whichever position you were, or coming back to your body, opening the eyes, or coming back into the seated position or the area you were at your own pace. Good. Hopefully everybody is back by now. So I just want to start off with introduction as to who am I and why are we here. I hope you enjoyed that anchored exercise. It's really one of my favorites. It's something I really do in class, even when I'm in my internship and I'm counseling. It's a really good one. So at any point that you need to go back to that place of comfort, feel free. So as I said, my name is Alyssa. I'm a dance therapist, student dance therapist at Drexel University. I will be a dance therapist come June. And I'm also a counseling intern at the University of the Arts and founder of Rebel Arts Movement Center, which does a lot of tumbling acrobatics and soon one day arts therapy for the kids in the community of Philadelphia. And then I consider myself a community activist, especially for youth. I worked with Philadelphia School District before, out of school, after school programs, really just kind of like monitor education and health. So why are we here? So my goal today, well, sorry, not my goal. I like to say intentions. My intention is to help you learn about nonverbal bias, learn more about it. I also want to help you gain an understanding of what it looks like, raise awareness of its existence in ourselves and our peers. So this is not even just about looking out. I feel like a lot of times when we talk about bias and things like that, we're often trying to think about somebody else who did bias, but I really want to invite you to kind of take a look at the bias and the nonverbal bias that lives within you. And then learning how to work on it and call others in, right? Calling them in when you see it so that they can take notice. So that's literally my intentions for you today. And just to, go forward, I just want to invite you as we go into this to want to take care of yourself. Reminder, like if you need to go and get anchored, if you start feeling some emotions arise up, I invite you to listen to understand. There's going to be parts that are just like a little uncomfortable. Sometimes there are examples in here that seem a little similar and we kind of start thinking, oh my gosh, did I do that? Is that me? What does that mean? Just try to understand it and explore that a little bit. Listen to learn. Question what you don't understand. If at any point, please feel free to send questions. I'm not sure of how muting does. If there is a way to unmute, that's fine. Or someone can just let me know. But question anything you don't understand. It is okay. This is a space where we're all learning. And I also invite you to sit in discomfort. So again, like sometimes we come across examples where we're reminded that maybe we have caused harm to somebody and we don't like it. It's not comfortable. We're humans. We don't want to do it. But just sit in that and just really explore it. It really helps. So what is nonverbal bias? By definition, and I thought these are really good definitions. In-person perception, positive or negative evaluation influenced by a person's body language, personal appearance, or mode of dress. And the second one I really loved, body language signifying a positive or negative evaluation of someone. For instance, so research studies have shown like television anchors can unconsciously exhibit nonverbal cues reflecting their differential evaluation of political figures or people that they're talking about. And I don't know if maybe you guys watched the news recently or lately, not a lot of people are doing that, but you can kind of tell how people feel about someone just by their body language sometimes. So that nonverbal communication lives within us, and sometimes it can be used to display bias against other people. So I want to give a couple of examples of nonverbal bias. So one example, say a Black man gets on an elevator with a white woman. She looks at him and immediately tightens her grip on her purse. Another example, an immigrant student is answering a question, speaking to the teacher that the teacher has asked. The teacher's face scrunches up in confusion as they speak. I can dive more into that later. So, well, actually, I can say more about that. So say, to give more deep example, have you ever been in class and maybe somebody is speaking, maybe they have an accent, or even maybe they're using African-American vernacular English, and the teacher kind of gives that like look of confusion. Even students do it sometimes too. I've noticed that often happens with groups of certain backgrounds more than others, right? So there's a little bit of bias in that. We'll unpack that more. And a third example, an Asian woman sits on the train next to a man. He looks at her and moves away. That's something that's very relevant right now, right? That was something that was happening in the beginning of the pandemic, where we saw that people were not sitting next to people of Asian backgrounds. So these are a few examples of nonverbal bias. And if something comes alive, like maybe you have seen it before, I'm curious. If you have, like, let me know in the chat, like, have you seen something like this, or can you relate to it yourself? So this is the story of Lillian Smith, and I'm going to stop sharing for a quick second so I can talk about that. So I got into, not worry, yes, okay, cool. So the reason why I got into nonverbal bias, it started with a discussion about embodied racism. And there was a man named Dr. Yancey who came and spoke with us about the dangers of white innocence. That's what was talked about. And he told a story of a woman named Lillian Smith who, wanted to be an ally, was really big on desegregation. And so to do this, what she decided to do was she was going to go and eat at a Black restaurant. This white woman said, I'm going to go to this Black restaurant and I'm going to sit down. And as she sat down at the restaurant, she felt herself getting violently ill. She just could not understand like what was going on. She was fine that day. All of a sudden she was getting ill. She wondered, was it the food? And what they came to discover was that her white body was rejecting being in the presence of Black people at the time. So his point was that whiteness often will reject Blackness. And so what happens is there was a physiological reaction going on inside of her that is usually it's part of nonverbal bias. So while she wanted to be an ally, she wanted to be there, she wanted to help, her body was still reacting towards the discomfort of being around these people at a time where, Jim Crow laws and things like that. So I just wanted to talk about that. And that made me start exploring, what is happening in the body? Like there's a lot of people who they mean well, but what is going on inside, and how can we bring attention to that so that we're not displaying that nonverbal bias and causing harm? Because it's kind of very much like a microaggression, right? It's like it stings. And I'm pretty sure I don't want to speak, but maybe even some of you in here can start or kind of starting to think about a time where you've experienced nonverbal bias, and maybe it hurt because you couldn't report it, you didn't have the language to report it. So this is why I just wanted to tell that story, because it was so interesting that it made me really dive in and explore that we still have physiological and reactions when it comes to bias, and we display that. So I just wanted to share that. I'm curious, did anybody ever experience form of nonverbal bias? Like, does that seem familiar? I can't even click on the comments, but yeah. Wow. Yes, you're so right, Monique. Nonverbal cues definitely speak loudly. And Brandy, yes, they even do that towards people's names. That's so true. Oh, so true. Oh my gosh, we're going to get into that. Yeah. So a lot of you have experience and you've known this. So we're going to dive in more. It gets even real. it gets real. So I'm glad you guys shared that to me. We're going to touch on that even more. So I'm going back to my screen, share this presentation. All right. So let's talk about nonverbal communication so we can really understand what we're talking about when we're going to nonverbal bias. So there are seven different types of nonverbal communication. There's facial expressions, right? As we talked about with the teacher, like making funny faces. How many of y'all, you guys are, your friends make fun of you, like your face tells all, like you cannot control your face. Like sometimes our faces will, kind of say what we're thinking. So an example was the teacher of nonverbal bias using facial expressions, also saying names. The look of confusion when somebody's saying their name. We've seen that before. Another type of nonverbal communication is body movement. So gestures, nodding, or even movement. So that was just like the example of the elevator where the person snatched away their purse. That was an example of body movement body movement displaying nonverbal bias. Posture, right? Posture tells us everything about whether a person is wanting to accept us or not. An interesting thing is, and I want to show, there was a study I did not put on here, but one study was trying to explore the postures of bias. And what they found, so what they did was they invited participants to come watch two films. One film was of a Black man committing a crime, and the other film was a white man committing a crime. And it was interesting because after they watched the movies, they were asked to, describe what happened. And those who were describing the Black man committing a crime, they had an open posture, straight. It was like with confidence that they were able to say what had happened. But when it came time to explain what happened with the white man who was committing a crime, it was very closed. It was a lot of fidgeting. It was obvious discomfort. And what they found was that people were uncomfortable with the idea of a white person committing a crime, but they were confident in describing the Black person or person of color committing the crime. So it's just the posture really changes, and that shows that bias, that there's no way this person could do it, but this person, I can definitely believe it, right? So that's getting into posture. Eye contact is another way of nonverbal communication. Making eye contact, and that in some backgrounds that's a sign of respect, right? You look in somebody in the eyes, but in some it's different. So an idea of the bias of the eye contact sometimes can be used against you sometimes can be used against others. So when you have somebody saying like, look me in the eyes, that's a little bit of bias right there, because some cultures do not meet the eyes of their elders. It's a sign of respect. So there's a different example of eye contact. Paralanguage. So we're talking about tone, right? How many of you, your mom said, watch your tone? So paralanguage, sometimes you don't have to say anything, but your tone says it all. And I would give an example of that. So there's a lot of times as a Black woman, I have had to correct the tone of my white counterparts because there is a hint of condescension in there. And that sometimes comes out, and that is a form of nonverbal bias. And maybe some people of color can identify and understand what I'm talking about, whether you're talking to a doctor or a professor. It's probably happened before. So the tone, sarcasm, that paralanguage is a form of nonverbal communication, and it can also be used as bias. Then we also have proxemics, how close one is to another. So here we have an example of the Asian woman who sat down on the train and the person moved away. Proxemics really kind of give an idea of how comfortable we are with the person. And so when you see somebody like moving away, and as many people want to say, oh, it's because I want to give room, and that's fine, you don't have to prove anything to me. But I ask you, like, are you moving away to give that person room? Or are you moving away because you're just uncomfortable? And there are times when, there's discomfort, it's out of safety, but those are things to really explore. And the last one, physiological changes. And it just goes back to that story of Lillian Smith, like what is happening internally? And it goes into, sometimes I can see when someone fears me or is not comfortable with me because of what's going on in their body. They're breathing faster. They're nervous. They're getting fidgety. You can just kind of see those physiological changes. So those are 7 types of nonverbal communication. And I'm pretty sure some of you are thinking about like, whoa, I remember this time. I remember that time. Like, Yeah, there's so many different ways you can do this nonverbal bias. So I want to talk about the contagion of nonverbal bias. So I had a couple of studies I came across. So one study by Carney in 2015 found that nonverbal bias is actually contagious. And what he did in that one to prove it, he did it at a hospital for this one. And they found that if they inputted, I guess you could say, I don't want to say input, that if they displayed a form of nonverbal bias and someone else was around, they would take that, right? So let's go back to that example of the white woman who's moving her purse from the black man on the elevator. Let's say that there's another white person on that elevator. They unconsciously will see what this white woman did to the black person, and they will repeat it to someone else. So it's very contagious. Just think about how many times, if you're watching me and I do a form of movement, how it's living in your mind, and you could probably repeat it back to me. That's just how powerful that nonverbal bias can be, and it's very dangerous. So it's definitely, so there's a study right there you can take a look at. Not only that, nonverbal bias can be used to create new bias. So this one was done at a daycare. And what they decided to do was they explored the nonverbal bias being contagious, but they asked themselves, what if we could create a new bias? And so what they did was, I think they took, they used a toy, and how the woman was acting towards the toy based on what shirt it was wearing, the kids gained bias from that. So an example of can be from COVID-19, people moving away from Asians. Just by you seeing somebody move would make you want to move too. So that's why it's really dangerous, like this nonverbal bias, and it's going around and we don't even know it. You could be having bias that lives within you that wasn't even from you. It came from a parent, faculty, friend, whichever. That's why it's so important to really call others in. Another thing is nonverbal bias can appear when interacting with groups you are not comfortable with. Okay, so think about the first time you interacted with a group that you weren't familiar with. Maybe you are if you're a white person who's never been around Black people before, or you're a cisgender female who's never been around the LGBTQIA community before. Like, think about just the discomfort that might have came up where you were just kind of thinking, like, how do I act? Like, should I do this? And what happens is people who do that, we hear about people who say, oh, I don't want to talk about this. I don't know if I can. What happens is they end up being biased because of that. So this has happened actually in a study in the hospital where they found that the residents were not really interacting with their Black patients non-verbally as much as with their white patients. And what they found was it was because they were just uncomfortable. They did not know how to interact with them. So sometimes it can appear when you're not interacting with groups. And that's why it's really important to really step outside your circles and really immerse and get to know other groups outside of your own. Nonverbal bias can also appear as no interaction at all. So with that study I mentioned, which is Elliott 2016, the bias was they were more engaged with their white patients. So there was like hand touching the shoulders, interactions, things like that, but it wasn't coming off to the Black patients. So sometimes nonverbal bias can simply just be not wanting to interact with you at all. And that in itself can be bias. So it doesn't have to be a purposeful movement. It could literally be, I just don't want to interact with you. I don't want to be in your proximity, things like that. Nonverbal bias can also occur when one isn't familiar with the nonverbal communications of one culture. So an example of this is, Black people, we talk with our hands, right? We have this hand choreography going on when we're talking. And what happens, this is something, while we can, those in the group may understand that this is from passion, right? Others can see it as aggression. And we've came across that sometimes, right? Where people have been talking and somebody's like, oh, they're being aggressive. And I still see this with some of my students, unfortunately, have this problem. And that's because people are not familiar with their nonverbal communications. Again, another example of Asians with eye contact. And this was something that came up in a microaggression workshop I talked about, like how, the whole look at me when I'm talking to you, how that can be just harmful for some, because if that's not how I communicate my culture, if that's against my culture, I'm not going to do that. So it's really important that we are really familiar with the nonverbal communications of everybody's culture. So while you're out there learning all the slang and the lingo, make sure you're learning about, how are they interacting with each other on a body level, on a body-based level. So I want to chat with you. I want to ask, when did you experience nonverbal bias? So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see. I'm going to check in with these chats. I teach at a PWI, and I've seen a surprise look from students because I'm the first professor of color they have. Wow. Yes, that's power. That is powerful. Ooh. Monique, you are giving me some stuff that is just like blowing my mind. And Jacqueline says, I see it a lot on public transportation. I'm trying to click. Here we go. I had a professor try to pronounce my name twice before rolling their eyes and saying, as a fellow student said, oh my gosh, yes. The eye rolls, yes, that comes into that facial the facial bias, the facial nonverbal bias. I'm sorry. And did I say right? It is let me see, S like smile. Asma. Did I say it right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me, no, girl, that is not how you pronounce my name. Black people are often associated with a lot of negativity and poor stereotypes. Very much so. Very, very much so. And that's why you get these especially with going back to that video, that study about the videos, media where Black people are often portrayed in media in a negative way. So whereas our white counterparts are not. And I did a video on this when I talked about what happened at the Capitol, where I said like a lot of, of course they didn't have a lot of police presence because a lot of people cannot picture a white person committing a crime. And what do we have when we have movies and we see the white hero being violent? They're usually doing so to fight for their survival or they're saving something, right? When we talk about those dystopian movies. And whereas the Black counterparts, it's often they are in the ghetto and they're just, and just a criminal. It's not the same. So it really plays a part. So let me see. I want to say, so thank you for sharing with me about that experience. Because you clearly acknowledge your name. So I just want to take care. You clearly acknowledge your name, and it is not. I think everybody should take the time out to remember somebody's name. It's just the bare minimum of respect that you can do. Let me see. All right, and if I say y'all names wrong, please correct me. Yajara said, a government person cannot say my name and presented me as Barbara all night long at a fundraiser. I kept correcting him throughout the evening and it became the joke of the evening. Oh, wow. And I'm just hoping that as people are sitting here reading this, really take this back to some of your peers. Take this back, because I don't think people are even recognizing, or sometimes they do and they just don't care. But really, the more we call people in, the better it gets. Let me see. I teach public speaking, and my students' nonverbal responses to peers talking about race is something I have pointed out to address and talk about within my courses this semester. My students are on camera now within Zoom, and the eye rolling and facial expressions run wild, and it's interesting as a professor to watch and observe. Yes, and it's because now we are all in front of each other, and I can see people's faces too when I'm in class as to how they're responding to the peers. It really is, the face really can tell all, and some people don't even recognize that their face is telling it. Their words are saying their words are saying something else than what their face and their body is saying. So on the opposite side, can anybody think of a time where they may have inflicted nonverbal bias on someone else? And I know that's a hard one to think about, when posed with the question like, has there ever been a time that you have caused harm? That can be a little bit difficult. So I'm curious if anybody can tell me about a time where they've experienced nonverbal bias or they inflicted nonverbal bias themselves. So I'll give an example. My nonverbal bias, which is really out of safety, is sometimes to this day, when I'm walking down the street, if I see a police officer, I cross the street. I can be very transparent about that. To this day, when I'm walking down the street and I see a police officer, I cross the street. And it is literally not even a thought, like it just happens. And I feel myself, my physiological response when seeing a police officer. And that is something that definitely have had. So that's my, that is one time I could definitely say that I've had nonverbal bias, although I argue that is also out of safety. I try to talk about all our students, ask about their culture beliefs. It's sad to see how happy and surprised they are to be asked. I know. And it's great. I'm grateful that we have people. I cross the street too when I randomly see parked cars or groups of people who seem drunk or kind of loud or potentially offensive. Yes. And you know what, Steffi, it's interesting that you say that, because I also heard about women saying that they do that when it comes to, I think, around groups of men. I often hear about different women saying, like, if they come around different groups of men, they will walk around. Sorry, I'm passing cords around. But they will say that they don't feel comfortable walking through groups of men. So I often hear about that too. I've been having a hard time approaching homes that have the American flag. I used to see it as pride prior to the last 4 years. Now I question their stance. That is a really good point. And I definitely understand that a lot. How many of you, when you're driving through neighborhoods, do you view the signs? Like, are you looking at one point before, November? Were you looking at signs? Because I found myself doing so. It's interesting that you bring up the American flag. Like, I think that is something that people have become kind of uneasy about, along with also just like different political signs as well. They don't feel comfortable. And I have been in with friends who have been like, there's too many of this type of sign for me. I don't want to be here. Let's go. So I'm glad you guys got to share that with me. Anything comes up, let me know. We're going to go back. Oh, wait, hold on. There's a house with an American flag down the street from my school, and everyone feels uncomfortable walking past it. That really speaks volumes too, that symbols and images can just really play with our minds and just cause these physiological reactions. So I love these examples, everybody. I really do. Going back to this PowerPoint. So talking about that, let's get anchored again. Because we shared a lot. We shared about, people mispronouncing our names, those microaggressions, the faces that were given, the nonverbal bias. That is a lot to share, and that is a lot that is coming alive. So let's take a moment and get anchored. So I would invite you to find a place of relative comfort in your space. Go back to your place of comfort. And go ahead and get into that position that feels natural. I want you to identify what is rising for you. Is there any motion, or is there a little bit of heaviness? Where does it live? Right now, I'm feeling a warm sensation in my chest. It's warm, but it's a little heavy. Some of you may be feeling tightness. I want you to breathe into that feeling and breathe into that location of your body. And if you're feeling any tightness, again, go ahead and put some movement in there. And breathe into that. If you need to, place a hand over that, where that feeling is living. If that feeling is living in your neck, go ahead, feel free to rub your hands together and place it in that location. Go ahead one more time, rub those hands together. And if it's a different location, put it on a different location. So my hands are gonna go on my neck now. I'm feeling tightness in my neck. And so I'm gonna place my hands here, and you can place your hands wherever you're feeling that tightness that you're carrying. And remember to breathe into it. Take one more minute to just breathe. And as you're exhaling, just letting that weight fall off. That was a lot of weight to carry. So I feel like some of us were carrying these experiences with us for a long time. There are things that weren't mentioned that some of us are still carrying now. Just take your breath, deep breath. And I want to invite you at your own pace to return. At your own pace. And if you are returning, check in with me and tell me how you're feeling. What's coming alive for you? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Are you good? Are you shaken up? Once you have returned, let me know how you're feeling. Thank you for sharing to make me feel so good. Of course. Of course. Good, feeling relaxed. We're feeling supported. We're feeling relaxed. More aware. Yes, yes, yes. Definitely, Marie. Feeling aware, and that's key here, awareness, right? The more we are aware, the more we can be more conscious of our actions and our reactions, right? Of how we react to these things. So I'm glad we're feeling that. I'm going to go back to share. I just want to say I love being in this space. You guys are amazing. So I just had to put that out there. So speaking of awareness, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to address and work on nonverbal bias. So one way to address it, you want to get real. Please get real. Ask yourself about your physical responses to other people. I know we like to think that we are nice people, and nice has nothing to do with bias. Let me just put that out there. Nice has nothing to do with bias. Someone can like a Black person because they're nice and still hate Black people. So I just have to throw that out there. You got to get real with yourself about your physical responses to other people. Just like I mentioned earlier, are you moving away? Why are you moving away? Like, explore that. How is your face when you're reacting to someone's name? Explore that. Or when someone is saying something you don't agree with, explore that. You have to get real. And I think that is something that we are learning this year through this pandemic, is that we have to get real and get honest about our history of this country, and get real with how we are interacting with each other. So we have to get real, address it, ask yourself, explore those feelings. Also, call your friends and colleagues in and ask them to reflect on it. So if you're seeing somebody rolling their eyes, because that really kind of hurt me, and I know that hurt you, Yahira, I think it is, or if I mispronounce it, let me know. But all I could think of, where was the person who noticed this, that could have said something to that person? Because there's no way you're going to roll your eyes. There's no way you're going to just dismiss somebody's name in front of me without me checking it. So call your friends and colleagues and ask, like, hey, what was that eye roll? Why you roll your eyes? What was that? Why did you suck your teeth? Why did you do this? Why did, when that person came, you kind of moved away. Are you okay? Like, ask them, because what you're doing is you're bringing awareness to it, making them bring awareness to it. And you're also setting the tone that you will not accept it. And that's where we need to get. We need to get to the point where we are not accepting this. Also, report it if you see it. A lot of us tend not to report nonverbal bias. And I think that's something that's happening in the health. That was one of my thoughts for the healthcare system. Because oftentimes what happens when we talk about reporting bias, right? We're asked, what did they say? What happened? But we're asking what happened. We're looking for, what did they state? What did they verbally say of the offense? And what we need to do is start reporting the nonverbal offenses that we're seeing. So when you're seeing a professor rolling eyes at somebody's name, or people joking around about it, or sucking their teeth, report that. Report it. You see it, report it. You seeing somebody constantly move away, you ask them, you explore it, give them a chance, you explore it, but you also report it. We need to start looking for these things and start extracting it. Because as we said it earlier, nonverbal bias is contagious. So we need to report it and set the tone so that it's not spreading and really impacting the environment or that group of people. Now, how can we work on the nonverbal bias? We have to develop body awareness. There are a lot of people that are just not very aware of what is going on with their body or how they're reacting. The more you are aware and in tune with your body, the more you can kind of explore what's coming alive for you. The more you can say, why do I feel this when I get around this person? Whoa, I felt my face do something. Did I just react? Maybe I should apologize, and explain why my face reacted when she spoke and so. So develop the body awareness, and really that anchor exercise is a really good one. There's also something we do in Dance Movement Therapy called a body scan. And it's literally where you just kind of lay down and you just go from, just like a cat scan, where you go from the top of your head to the bottom down to your feet, just kind of looking for what's going on in your body. That's a really good practice. You can develop body awareness so you can be more aware of what you're doing with your body when you're in these situations. Explore your internal bias and address it. If you think that by not talking about your internal bias, that it's not going to be there, but it's coming through your body. Your body, your movement is your first language. Before you talked, before you spoke, before you even babbled, you moved. And that said everything. So you need to really explore internal bias. You need to address that so that it does not come through to your body. Be honest about it. And honestly, continue to do research. There's a lot of articles out here about nonverbal bias. I highly recommend you take a look at them, because when you start discovering all of these situations and all of these facts behind it, you really just kind of become more passionate about it and become more aware. So those are like my 3 things on addressing it. Get real, call your friends in, report it if you see it, and then develop the body awareness, explore the internal bias, address it, continue to do your research. That's key. And I just want to share, these are some articles that I have found some things. I have a few more. If anybody ever wants it, feel free to contact me, connect with me on here. I can send you some more, or if you just want to discuss more or are interested in it, please connect with me. I would be glad to share it, but it's really important. Let me stop sharing because I want to see y'all writing. I said it close enough. Okay. I don't care about close enough. I wanted to get it. I'm gonna get it. Do I have an email or Insta account? Yes, I do. Okay, so my email is the letter A, the letter B, 4452 at drexel.edu. Can I type that? Wait. I feel like an old lady because I'm like not working this out. But yes, it is AB4452 at drexel.edu. And my Instagram account is just my first name, last name. So Alyssa_Bigbee. If you guys want to connect with me on Instagram. I even have a TikTok. Young girl is hip out here where I talk about these things. Thank you. There you go. So there's my email. Feel free to contact me if you want to ask questions or if anything came up for you, you want to explore. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about bias. I love talking about racism. I love educating. And I also love just having dialogue. It's one of my favorite things to do. So let me see what's going on. We got to learn to take a break and just, sorry, I'm coming back here. Take a break from it, just feel it through so we can come back and make, yes. Please take care of yourselves as you guys are calling people in and bringing more awareness. Take care of yourselves. That's why I really wanted to offer up some experientials and some anchors. You want to get yourself an anchor as you're doing these things. And good, Brandy. Yes. Brandy said she had an experience and she reported it ASAP on campus. Please use these things. That's their job. And even if you feel like, oh, nothing will happen, you have it documented. Documented. Folk will try to make you feel crazy for calling them out on the nonverbals and gaslight. Oh, Alexandria, you're so right. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. They will try to say, and it's happened before because I just posted a video about this on TikTok about embodied racism. And someone was just like, well, I just move aside because I want to give them room. Does that make me this? And I'm like, it must have been more than that for you to mention it, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't have said anything. So yes, they will. And you know what? But you know. You're welcome, Maurice. Thank you, everybody. Is there any questions at all? I got a couple of minutes to answer them. I'm going to sit down for a quick. I was too hyped standing up. Is there any questions at all? Or just any comments? I love reading what you guys are discovering. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Alexandria. I really appreciate it. Something I was really passionate about. This is going to be my thesis. I end up going in another direction, but I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Thomas. Thanks, Brandy. Did I dance earlier? I did not dance earlier. I did do an experience. I was doing my dance. That's my place of comfort, is flowing, what I like to call flow. And sometimes that could be also to put in your place of comfort. You don't have to be still to do that. For me, I like to put on Nirvana, put on songs, and I flow. I did it right before I came to this session. So sometimes just flowing or just dancing, getting into your cultural dance. I cannot tell you how many times I've just put on some West African drums and I'm like grounded. So sometimes even putting on your cultural music for people of color. You're welcome. And I'm gonna get these names right. So I truly appreciate it. Please feel free to connect with me if any questions come up. But I'm glad that we all got something from this. That's all I really wanted to make sure, as I gave you guys something. So I'm very happy and grateful that you were able to take some things out of it. I feel like there was one thing I wanted to mention. I'm curious, is there, because we have like people of different backgrounds. Yes, Irish culture. I really enjoyed. I had a client bring in some. I think she called it was Irish, or no, she actually gave me some Celtic music, but it was really relaxing. So exchanging music is really a good way to kind of just reconnect. I'm curious, does anybody have any nonverbal communications that they identify in their cultures? So like, as I was talking about, like how Black people like to talk with hands, does anybody have any nonverbal communications they want to share? I'm curious to learn. So if you have any, please feel free to share. We got a couple minutes before we jet out of here. So I was curious if anybody had any. Celtic art, yes. There it is. Yeah, it was really relaxing, Marie. I was like in heaven leading that. I think I added it to my YouTube playlist. Thank you, Steffi. Did I say it right? Please let me call me out when I do not say your name right, please. Because I will surely call anybody who mispronounces my name in a heartbeat. Well, I'm glad.
Hello. Well, thank you so much on this great session. I know it gave me a lot to think about. I feel like it was a perfect session for the morning. You know, we're grounded now, and I can't wait to take what I learned to my day. The Inclusive Leadership Conference would love to know how you all thought. So you can do so by rating this session down below, and any feedback will go to the ILC and Alyssa. So yeah, please give it a chat one more time for Alyssa Bigbee. And don't forget to participate in the games and post on the wall to earn prizes. I heard a little rumor that you're not going to want to miss it. And you can also follow us on social media at TU Leadership, at Temple Diversity, and at KleinGo. Yeah, I'm just going to open the chat. Yay. So this does conclude our session. Please make sure you meet us later today at 12:15 for performative allyship when sharing social media posts aren't enough with Sierra McNeil and Quiana Daniels. Thank you everyone so much, and thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you guys.